Hold on to me. That's what she whispered. A 15-year-old girl with nothing, no home, no family, no food in her stomach for 3 days, carrying a blind 7-year-old boy on her back through 6 miles of the most dangerous streets in El Paso, Texas. She didn't know his name, didn't know his father commanded the most feared motorcycle club in the state, didn't know that walking through those gates would be the bravest or the last thing she'd ever do. She just knew he was crying, and she couldn't walk away. This is the story of Lily Harper and the blind boy who changed everything. Before we go any further, if stories about courage, sacrifice, and unexpected kindness move you, please subscribe to this channel and follow this story all the way to the end. I promise you, what happens next will stay with you for a long time. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what city you're watching from. Let's see how far Lily's story can travel. Lily Harper heard the crying before she saw the boy. She was on her knees behind a burned-out building, fingers black with ash, reaching for a crushed aluminum can wedged between 2 chunks of concrete. 7 cans in her backpack. 7 cans meant maybe 40 cents at the recycling center. 40 cents meant nothing tonight. Another hungry night. Another night where her stomach would eat itself while she tried to sleep under the bus shelter on 9th Street. But then she heard it. Not angry crying, not frustrated crying. This was something else entirely. Thin, desperate, broken. The kind of crying that came from a place where hope had already died. Lily stopped moving. Her hand froze halfway to the can. Every instinct she'd built over 2 years of living on the streets told her the same thing. Keep walking. Mind your business. Stay invisible. Getting involved meant complications. Complications meant danger. And danger, for a homeless 15-year-old girl, meant things she couldn't afford to think about. But the crying didn't stop. It cracked and stuttered and broke apart like something fundamental was shattering in real time. And something in that sound reached past Lily's survival instincts to a place she tried to bury. The place that remembered exactly what it felt like to be terrified and alone with nobody coming. She followed the sound. Behind the building, wedged into a corner where ash met broken fence, she found him. A little boy, small, maybe 7 years old, knees pulled to his chest, hands scraped raw and bleeding, face streaked with tears and soot. But it was his eyes that made Lily's breath stop. Clouded, unfocused, staring at everything and seeing nothing. Blind, completely blind. And he was calling out in a voice so small it nearly broke her in half. "Daddy, Daddy, where are you? I can't see, I can't find you." Lily approached the way she approached stray dogs. Slow, non-threatening, gentle. Her shadow fell across him and he jerked hard, his head turning toward her, his useless eyes searching for a face they'd never find. "Who's there?" Pure terror in that voice. "Hey." Lily knelt down in the dirt beside him. She made her voice as soft as she could. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Are you hurt?" His bottom lip trembled. Fresh tears spilled down cheeks that were already soaked. "I can't see," he sobbed. "I can't see anything. I was at the center and there was fire and people were running and Miss Karen grabbed my hand but then she let go and I couldn't find the door and I walked and walked and now I don't know where I am and I can't find my daddy." Every word came out in a rush, tumbling over itself, a dam breaking. Lily's chest did something painful. She'd seen hard things in 15 years, harder than most people see in a lifetime. But this tiny boy, blind, terrified, bleeding, alone in a place he should never have been, hit different. Hit somewhere she thought she'd armored over. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Ethan." A hiccup. "Ethan Cole." "Okay, Ethan. I'm Lily. I'm going to help you, all right?" "You promise?" His voice cracked on the word like it was the most important thing anyone had ever asked. "I promise." She pulled her water bottle from her backpack, half full, her only water until she could find another public fountain. She unscrewed the cap and guided it to his lips. "Drink this. All of it. You need it more than I do." Ethan drank like he hadn't had water in hours. It spilled down his chin and his small hands shook holding the bottle. And when it was empty, he wiped his mouth with the back of his bleeding hand and said something that almost knocked Lily sideways. "Are you an angel?" She nearly laughed. An angel. Her, with her filthy clothes and empty stomach, and a life lived in alleys and doorways and the spaces between other people's garbage. "No, sweetie, I'm just someone who heard you crying. But you stopped. Nobody else stopped." That sentence landed like a punch. Lily swallowed hard. "Yeah, I stopped." She turned her back to him and knelt down. "Climb on. We're going to find help. It's too far for you to walk." "I'm heavy." "I'm strong. Come on." His small hands found her shoulders, tentative at first, then gripping tight. His arms wrapped around her neck, his legs locked around her waist. Lily stood slowly, feeling his weight settle against her. 50 pounds of scared, trusting, helpless child pressing into her malnourished frame. Her legs trembled, her shoulders protested. She steadied herself, found her balance, and started walking. "Where does your daddy work?" she asked. "Do you know the address?" "I don't know the address, but his motorcycle is really loud. It sounds like thunder." "Okay, that's a start." She had no phone, no money, no idea where she was going. She just started walking because standing still with a blind boy on her back in a burned-out neighborhood was not an option. And she had absolutely no idea that the really loud motorcycle belonged to one of the most dangerous men in El Paso. 3 blocks into their journey, Lily's body was already screaming at her. Her shoulders burned. Her legs shook with every step. Sweat soaked through her shirt and ran stinging into her eyes. The heat pressed down like a physical hand trying to push her into the ground. She stopped at a gas station, set Ethan down gently against the wall, filled her water bottle from an outdoor faucet, let him drink first, took small sips herself. Through the window, the clerk watched them, his hand near the phone, not concern on his face, suspicion. Lily straightened up, walked inside. The clerk's eyes tracked her like she was going to steal something. "Please," Lily said. "This boy got separated from his father during a fire at the community center. He's blind. I need to get him to the police station. Can you tell me where it is?" The clerk looked at Ethan, looked back at Lily, looked at her dirty clothes, her tangled hair, her too thin arms. His expression didn't change. "I can't help you. He's 7 years old. He can't see. His father is looking for him right now." "Not my problem. You need to leave." Lily stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then she turned, walked out, picked Ethan back up, and kept moving. "What did the man say?" Ethan asked. "He said the police station is that way." She lied. She lied to a blind boy because telling him the truth, that a grown man looked at a lost, frightened child and said, "Not my problem," was something she couldn't bring herself to do. A woman was pumping gas at the next pump over. Blonde, clean clothes, nice car. The kind of person who looked like she had answers and resources and a phone that worked. "Excuse me?" Lily shifted Ethan's weight on her back. "This boy got lost during a fire. He's blind. I'm trying to get him home. Can you help us?" The woman looked at Lily, really looked. Her eyes traveled down, the oversized shirt, the jeans with holes that weren't fashion, the shoes held together with duct tape, the grime on her face. The woman's expression went from polite to something else, something colder. She got in her car, locked the doors, drove away without one single word. Ethan's voice came small from Lily's shoulder. "Why won't people help us?" Lily's jaw tightened. "Some people are scared of things they don't understand." "Are you scared?" "No," she lied again. "I'm not scared." "Good, because I'm scared enough for both of us." That made Lily's throat close up. She adjusted his grip on her shoulders and kept walking, block after block, asking strangers who looked through her like glass. One man pointed east. A woman shook her head and walked faster. An older guy at a bus stop said, "Try the fire station on Alameda," but that was 3 miles in the wrong direction. Then Lily approached an old man sitting on a bench. Weathered face, kind eyes. He actually listened. "You're heading toward the east side, girl." His voice was serious, dead serious. "That ain't safe for a kid like you, especially not when the sun goes down. Whatever you're doing, turn around." Lily adjusted Ethan's weight. "Safer than leaving him alone." The man shook his head slowly. "Lord help you." Nobody tried to stop her. They just watched her walk toward danger and called it her decision. While Lily walked, Ryan Cole was tearing El Paso apart. He'd pulled into the community center parking lot at 2:58, 2 minutes early, like always. Because when you had a blind son, routine was the difference between safety and catastrophe. But the moment he cut his engine, his whole world tilted sideways. Fire trucks, police cars, smoke, parents screaming, children wrapped in blankets, chaos where there should have been order. Ryan was off his bike and running before his brain caught up to his legs. 6'3", 240 pounds of muscle and ink and fury. His leather cut, the one with the Hells Angels patches that made grown men step out of his path, hung across shoulders that were built for exactly this kind of desperate, violent motion. He grabbed the first staff member he could find. Young woman, soot on her face, terror in her eyes. "Ethan Cole." His voice was controlled, barely. 7 years old, blind. "Where is my son?" Her face went white. We're still doing a head count." The evacuation, there was so much smoke and the children. Ryan's hand closed on her shoulder. Not rough, but absolutely unyielding. "You lost my blind son." Each word landed like a hammer on an anvil. "We're checking with all the staff. He might be with another group. Let me..." But Ryan was already moving. Phone already out. Speed dial already connecting. "We got a situation." His voice was ice. "Ethan's missing. Eastside Community Center. Fire. Everyone. Now." He hung up. 20 minutes later, 40 motorcycles roared into the neighborhood. 40 Harleys. 40 men in leather cuts bearing the death's head patch of the Hells Angels. Brothers who lived by a code that outsiders never understood and insiders never broke. Family first. Always, without question, without hesitation. Ethan wasn't a member. He was 7 years old and blind and couldn't even see the patch his father wore. But he was Ryan Cole's son, and that made him the most protected child in El Paso. Ryan gave orders from the parking lot. His voice carried the kind of authority that came from years of commanding men who didn't take orders easily. Grid search, every alley, every business, every dumpster, every doorway, every corner within a mile. He's blind. He can't see danger coming. He can't read street signs. He can't call for help if someone takes him. Find my son. Tommy Briggs, younger, a father himself, daughter the same age, looked at Ryan and said, "We'll find him, brother. Every one of us." Snake, old, scarred, a voice that carried decades of loyalty, said simply, "Nobody stops until the boy's home." They fanned out. 40 bikers who looked like society's worst nightmare became the most efficient search force El Paso had ever seen. They knocked on doors. They demanded security footage. They questioned every person on every sidewalk. The police tried to coordinate, but the Hells Angels moved faster and harder, and with a desperation that law enforcement couldn't match. Because the police were doing their jobs, the Hells Angels were looking for family. An hour passed. Then 2. Every report came back the same. Nothing on 4th Street. Check the park. He's not there. Gas stations. Nobody's seen him. Shelters are clear. Each negative report was a blade twisting in Ryan's chest. Back at the compound, the common room had become a war room. Map of El Paso spread across the main table. Red marks for searched areas. Black marks for the shrinking number of places they hadn't been. Phones ringing nonstop. Brothers calling in every favor, every contact, every connection they had in a city they'd lived in for decades. Big Jack Lawson walked in at 4:45. The club president moved with the authority of a man who'd earned respect the hard way, through loyalty, through sacrifice, through decades of never once breaking his word. Gray beard, scarred hands, eyes that could read a room in 2 seconds flat. He put a hand on Ryan's shoulder, heavy, solid, the weight of the entire brotherhood behind it. "Talk to me." Ryan's jaw was clenched so tight his teeth ached. 2.5 hours, Jack. 2.5 hours my boy's been out there. He can't see. He can't navigate. He doesn't know where he is. He's 7 years old and he's alone and he's blind, and every minute his voice cracked. He caught it, held it, shoved it back down. Big Jack didn't flinch. "We're going to find him." What if someone took him? What if someone saw a blind kid alone and... "Don't." Big Jack's voice was quiet but absolute. "Don't go there. Not yet. We keep searching." Ryan pressed both fists against the table. His knuckles went white. "I promised Sarah. On her deathbed. I looked her in the eyes and I promised I would keep him safe. She trusted me, Jack. She died trusting me." The room went quiet. Every biker in that room had known Sarah Cole, had watched cancer eat her alive in 8 months, had seen Ryan hold it together at the funeral with Ethan, 4 years old, blind, holding his father's hand, not understanding why his mother's voice was gone forever. Big Jack leaned in close. His voice was for Ryan alone, but the silence made it carry. "Sarah trusted you because you're the kind of man who will burn this city to the ground to bring that boy home. So stop thinking about failing her and start thinking about where he could be." Tommy burst through the door. "Ryan, radio just put it out. News picked it up. Ethan's name, his description, the fire, it's everywhere." Ryan nodded. "Good. Someone's seen him. Someone has to have seen him." What Ryan didn't know, what nobody in that room could have guessed, was that someone had seen Ethan. A 15-year-old homeless girl who was right now carrying his blind son on her back through the worst neighborhoods in the city. A girl who had just learned exactly whose son she was carrying, and she was terrified out of her mind. The radio changed everything. Lily was leaning against a convenience store wall, Ethan half asleep on her back, her legs shaking so badly she wasn't sure they'd hold for another block. The radio inside the store was playing through the open door, and the announcer's voice cut through the static like a knife. "El Paso police are asking for help locating 7-year-old Ethan Cole, who went missing this afternoon during a fire at the Eastside Community Center. Ethan is blind and was last seen wearing a blue shirt. He is the son of Ryan Cole, a member of the El Paso Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Anyone with information..." Lily's blood turned to ice. Hells Angels. The two words hit her like a truck going 60, because everyone in El Paso knew that name. Everyone. The motorcycle club that ran the East Side. The men in leather who made people cross the street. The bikers who handled their own problems and never, ever, ever forgave. Her mind started racing, spinning, scenarios crashing into each other like cars on a highway. What would they think when they saw her? A homeless girl, dirty, thin, carrying their boy? Would they believe she found him? Or would they think she took him? What would men like that do to someone they thought had stolen a member's child? She could feel her heartbeat in her teeth. She could leave him, right now, walk into the store, tell the clerk to call the police, disappear back into the invisible spaces where nobody could find her. Ethan couldn't see her face. He wouldn't be able to describe her. She'd be a ghost. Another nameless person who briefly crossed someone's life and vanished without a trace. No one would blame her. Her legs actually started to move backward. 1 step, 2, then Ethan stirred against her shoulder. His arms tightened around her neck. His small, broken voice came out barely above a whisper. "Lily, are you still there?" She stopped. "Yeah, buddy. I'm still here. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. You're the only one who stopped. Lily closed her eyes. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. Every cell in her was screaming at her to run, to save herself, to survive. The same way she'd survived every day for 2 years. But this boy trusted her. This blind, terrified, helpless boy who couldn't even see her face had put his arms around her neck and believed she would keep him safe. And she thought about what it felt like to be left, to be dropped, to have someone promise safety and then walk away. She'd lived that story 3 times in 3 foster homes. She knew exactly how it ended. "Ethan," she said, and her voice was steady, even though nothing else about her was. "I'm going to take you home, to your dad, okay? Even though you're scared? Even though I'm scared. How do you know where to go?" "I'll figure it out." Lily lifted him higher on her back, adjusted his weight, took one breath, then another, and started walking east, toward the Hells Angels compound, toward the most dangerous men she'd ever heard of, toward something that could end her life or save it, and she had no way of knowing which. But Ethan needed his father, and Lily Harper had made a promise, and she had never, not once in 15 years of a life that had given her every reason to break, gone back on her word. Ethan pressed his face against her shoulder. His voice was muffled and small and absolutely certain. "You're brave, Lily." "No," she whispered. "I'm just too stubborn to quit." She kept walking, one foot in front of the other, into the falling dark, into the unknown, into the thing that scared her most. Because some promises are worth more than safety, and some choices aren't really choices at all. Lily's legs gave out at mile 4. Not a slow fade, not a gradual weakening. 1 second she was walking, Ethan's weight pressing into her shoulders, and the next her right knee buckled sideways and she went down hard. She twisted at the last second. Instinct, pure instinct, turning her body so Ethan landed on top of her instead of hitting concrete. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Her elbow cracked against the sidewalk. Pain shot up her arm like electricity. "Lily!" Ethan's hands scrambled across her face, her shoulders, her arms. His fingers found the wetness on her elbow, blood, and his voice pitched into panic. "You're hurt. You're bleeding. Lily, what happened?" "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her vision was graying at the edges, and her arms were shaking, and she couldn't feel her shoulders anymore, which was worse than pain because at least pain meant things were still working. "I just tripped. I'm fine." "You fell because of me, because I'm too heavy." "You're not too heavy. Put me down. I can walk. I'll hold your hand and walk." "Ethan, I'm making you hurt," his voice cracked. "I don't want to make you hurt." Lily lay on that sidewalk with a blind boy's hands on her face and felt something break open inside her chest. Not break apart, break open, like a door she'd welded shut 2 years ago. "Listen to me," she sat up slowly. Every muscle screamed. "You are not too heavy. You are not making me hurt. I chose this, okay? I chose to carry you, and I'm going to keep carrying you, and we're going to find your dad. That's the deal. That's the promise." Ethan's clouded eyes couldn't find her face, but his hands could. His fingers traced her cheeks, her jaw, the bridge of her nose, mapping her. The way blind people learn the faces they can't see. "You're crying," he said. "No, I'm not. Your cheeks are wet. That's sweat. It doesn't feel like sweat." Lily wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Okay, maybe a little. But it's the good kind. Now climb on, we've still got a ways to go." She got to her feet. It took 3 tries. Ethan climbed on carefully, lighter this time, like he was trying to make himself weigh less. His arms went around her neck gently instead of gripping. "Hold on tighter," Lily said. "But hold on to me, Ethan. I mean it. I won't drop you." His arms tightened. His face pressed against her shoulder, and Lily started walking again, one foot, then the other, then the next, moving through pain that had become background noise to the one thing louder. The promise she'd made to a boy who couldn't see her face, but trusted her completely. She'd been carrying him for nearly 5 hours now. 5 hours of heat and thirst, and her body eating itself for fuel because there was nothing else left to burn. She'd given him her only water 3 hours ago. The tacos Carlos gave them were gone. Her mouth was so dry her tongue stuck to the roof of it when she tried to swallow. But she kept moving, because she could feel Ethan's heartbeat against her back. Fast, scared, but steady. And that heartbeat was the only thing in the world that mattered. At the intersection of Reynolds and 7th, a group of men stood on the corner. 4 of them. Older, hard-looking, watching Lily approach with the kind of attention that made the hair on her neck stand up. One of them stepped into her path, not blocking her exactly, but not giving way either. Tall, heavy, arms crossed. "Where are you going with that kid?" Lily's heart rate spiked, but she kept her voice even. "He's lost. I'm taking him to his father." Lost. The man looked at his friends, looked back at Lily. "That's your brother?" "No." "Then whose kid is he?" "His father's name is Ryan Cole." The temperature on that corner dropped 20 degrees in half a second. Lily felt it happen. She watched the man's expressions shift from casual interest to something electric, something that moved through the group like a current. Ryan Cole. The man said the name like it was made of broken glass. "You mean the Hells Angels, Ryan Cole?" "Yes." "Girl." The man leaned down slightly. "Do you have any idea whose son you're carrying?" "I know exactly whose son I'm carrying. That's why I'm taking him home." A different man, shorter, older, hands in his pockets, spoke up. "Let her through, Dre. She's either the bravest kid I ever saw or the dumbest, and either way that boy don't need to be standing out here when it gets dark." The tall man, Dre, looked at Lily for a long moment. Something changed in his eyes. Not softness exactly, but recognition. Like he was seeing something unexpected. 3 blocks east, turn left on Montana. Follow Montana until you see the fence with the razor wire. You can't miss it, but girl," he paused, "you better pray they believe you. Because if they think you had anything to do with that boy going missing, ain't nobody going to find enough of you to bury." "I know," Lily said quietly. "I know exactly what could happen. And you're still going. He needs his dad." Dre stepped aside. As Lily walked past, she heard him say to the others, low but clear, "That kid's got more guts than half the men in this city." Lily didn't feel gutsy. She felt terrified and exhausted and half dead on her feet. But she turned left on Montana and kept walking. Because that was the only direction that mattered now. Ethan's voice came from her shoulder, quiet and worried. "Those men scared you. I could feel your heart beating really fast." "A little," Lily admitted. "Are we close?" "I think so, buddy." "What if your dad doesn't believe you about finding me?" The question Lily had been trying not to think about. The question that lived in the pit of her stomach like a stone. "Then I'll make him believe." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I will." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, "Lily?" "Yeah?" "If something bad happens, if they get mad at you, just run, okay? Just leave me there and run. I'll tell them you helped me. I'll tell them everything." Lily's throat closed completely. This 7-year-old blind boy, scared, exhausted, completely dependent on her, was trying to protect her. "Nothing bad is going to happen," she managed. "I'm going to walk you through that gate, and your dad's going to be there, and he's going to hold you, and everything's going to be fine. Promise?" "Promise." "You promise a lot." "I keep them all too." Ethan was quiet again. Then, "I believe you." 3 words. 3 small words from a child who couldn't see her face, couldn't judge her appearance, couldn't see the dirt or the poverty or any of the things that made everyone else dismiss her instantly. He could only hear her voice and feel her heartbeat and measure the fact that she'd carried him for hours, without once putting him down and walking away. And he believed her. Lily kept walking. At the compound, the air had turned toxic with desperation. 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's how long Ethan had been missing. The number pulsed in Ryan Cole's head like a second heartbeat. Every tick of the clock a fresh wound. He stood at the table in the common room, both fists pressed flat against the map, staring at the red marks that covered it like a rash. Almost every block within 2 miles of the community center had been searched. Brothers were expanding outward now, pushing into neighborhoods where the danger multiplied with every passing block. His phone rang. He grabbed it before the first ring finished. "Talk." Tommy's voice, strained and tired. "Nothing on the south grid, Ryan. We've covered every building, every lot, every alley. He's not here." Ryan pressed the phone against his forehead, squeezed his eyes shut. "Expand east. Hit the businesses on Montana." "Ryan, it's getting dark. If he's outside somewhere, wandering—" "Don't say it." "Brother, I said don't say it, Tommy." Silence on the line. Then, "We're moving east. I'll call when we have something." Ryan set the phone down carefully, deliberately, because if he didn't control every single movement, he was going to destroy everything within arm's reach. Big Jack walked up beside him, didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there, solid as a wall, letting his presence do the talking. "I keep thinking about what she'd say." Ryan's voice came out low and raw. "Sarah, if she could see this, if she could see that I lost him." "You didn't lose him. A fire started. A teacher let go of his hand. That's not on you." "I promised her, Jack. I sat next to her hospital bed, and I held her hand, and I looked her in the eyes, and I said I would protect him. That was the last thing I ever said to her, the last promise I ever made. And you've kept it every day for 3 years." "Not today." Ryan's voice cracked on the word. He caught it, held it. But the crack was there, and everyone in the room heard it, and not a single man looked away, because this was their brother's pain, and they would stand in it with him. Snake, who had been quiet in the corner for 20 minutes, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of 30 years in the club and a lifetime of seeing men at their worst and their best. "Ryan, that boy is alive. I feel it in my bones. Someone has him, someone good, and they're bringing him home. You don't know that. I know that God or fate or whatever you want to call it doesn't put a boy like Ethan into this world just to let him disappear in a fire. Someone found him. Someone's carrying him right now. I'd bet my patch on it." Ryan stared at Snake, wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. But believing meant hoping, and hoping meant the possibility of that hope being destroyed. And Ryan wasn't sure he could survive that. "If someone has him," Ryan said slowly, "why haven't they called? Why haven't they gone to the police? Why hasn't anyone?" "Maybe they can't. Maybe they don't have a phone. Maybe they're walking." "Walking from where?" "From wherever they found him, on foot, carrying a blind boy who can't walk unfamiliar streets alone. Think about it, Ryan. If someone good found him, really good, the kind of good that doesn't walk past a crying child, they'd carry him. They'd walk miles if they had to." Ryan opened his mouth to respond when Eddie burst through the door. Young, wired tight, breathing hard like he'd been running. "Ryan, we got something." The room went still. Every head turned. "Taco truck owner on South El Paso Street, guy named Carlos, says 2 hours ago a teenage girl came through carrying a blind boy on her back. Fed them both. Girl said she found the boy during a fire and was trying to get him home." Ryan didn't breathe. "Which direction did they go?" "East." Carlos said she asked for directions to the police station, but he thinks she headed east, toward us. A teenage girl. Ryan's mind was racing, carrying him. Carlos said she was homeless, thin, dirty clothes, maybe 15, said she was the most determined kid he'd ever seen. Ryan looked at Big Jack. Big Jack looked back. She's coming here, Big Jack said. If she's been walking since the fire. Ryan did the math. His stomach turned. That's been hours, carrying a 50-pound kid. In this heat, she could have collapsed by now. She could be anywhere between here and... We ride. Big Jack's voice cut through the room like a blade. Every man who's here, we ride east on Montana and we find that girl before something else does. Ryan was already moving toward the door. Ryan! Big Jack caught his arm. Their eyes met. If she brought your boy through 6 miles of the east side of El Paso, she did something none of us could do today. Remember that when you see her. Ryan nodded once, hard. Then he was through the door and on his bike, and the engine roared to life, and behind him 20 more engines answered. The sound shook the ground. The sound carried through the neighborhood like thunder. The sound reached 6 blocks east, where a 15-year-old girl with a blind boy on her back had just turned the corner onto the street that led to the compound. And Ethan's head lifted from Lily's shoulder. Motorcycles, he whispered. Lily, I hear motorcycles. Lily saw the compound and her feet stopped moving. Not a choice. Her body simply stopped, like a circuit had blown. The floodlights, the razor wire, the rows and rows of motorcycles. And the men, God, the men, 40 of them, 50, all leather and muscle and tattoos and hard faces, moving with urgent purpose, some of them climbing onto bikes, engines firing up, about to ride out. They were coming to look for Ethan. She could feel it. They were about to pour out of that gate and tear through the streets, and they would have found her, eventually. But Lily was here now, standing in the light, holding their boy. Her heart was beating so hard her vision pulsed with it. Ethan, her voice came out barely above a whisper. I think we're here. I can hear the bikes. That's a lot of bikes, Lily. Yeah, it's a lot. Is my daddy there? I think so. I think he's there. Are you scared? Lily's hands were shaking so hard Ethan could feel it through her shoulders. There was no point lying. Yeah, buddy, I'm really scared. I'll hold on tighter, okay? I'll hold on to you so they know you're good. Lily squeezed her eyes shut for 1 second. 1 single second where she let herself feel how absolutely enormous this moment was. Then she opened them. Okay, here we go. She walked toward the gate, 15 steps, each one the hardest thing she'd ever done. The floodlights found her, and she felt naked, exposed, every detail of her poverty and desperation lit up in high definition for 50 dangerous men to see. A biker near the fence saw her first. His head snapped up. His body went rigid. His eyes locked onto the small boy on her back. Hey! His shout split the compound wide open. Someone's at the gate. She's got a kid. Everything happened at once. Engines cut. Men turned. A wave of bodies surged toward the fence. Boots on concrete. Voices layering over each other. Urgent. Desperate. Afraid to hope. Is that him? Oh my God, is that Ethan? Get Ryan. Somebody get Ryan. Who is she? Who the hell is that girl? Lily stood in the light, trembling, clutching Ethan's legs to keep him on her back, surrounded by a closing circle of the most intimidating men she'd ever seen in her life. Her vision was tunneling. Her legs were about to give out. She could feel consciousness trying to slip away from her like water through open fingers. An older biker with a gray beard, Big Jack, though Lily didn't know that yet, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, reading everything about her in 3 seconds flat. Where did you find him? Behind a burned building. Lily's voice shook so hard the words came out broken. On Oregon Street. He was alone, crying. His hands were bleeding. I carried him. I've been walking for hours. I couldn't leave him there. How do we know you didn't take him? A younger biker, hard voice, suspicious eyes. Lily flinched like she'd been hit. I didn't. I swear I didn't. I found him. He was scared and I couldn't. She didn't take me. Ethan's voice rang out fierce and loud and absolutely certain. The entire compound went quiet. She gave me her water, all of it. She hasn't had anything to drink in hours. She carried me on her back and she fell down and hurt her arm and she got back up and kept going. She promised she'd bring me home and she did. She's not a bad person. She's the best person. Don't you hurt her." His small arms locked around Lily's neck so tight she could barely breathe. His body shook against her back, and his clouded eyes, useless, sightless, somehow blazed with a fury that silenced every man in that compound. Then the crowd parted. Footsteps, running, heavy and fast and desperate. And Ryan Cole came through the wall of men like a force of nature, his face wrecked with fear and hope, and 3 hours and 45 minutes of the worst agony a father could endure. He saw his son, small, dirty, tear-streaked, alive, clinging to the back of a girl who was barely standing, and his legs gave out. Ryan Cole dropped to his knees. This giant of a man, this feared Hell's Angel, this father who'd commanded 50 men and held together through hours of hell. He hit the ground and his hands reached out shaking, and his voice came out in a sound that wasn't quite a word, more like something breaking and healing at the same time. Ethan. Ethan heard his father's voice, and the sound that came out of him was something Lily would carry for the rest of her life. A wail, a release. Every ounce of terror and confusion and loneliness pouring out in one single devastating cry. "Daddy!" His arms released from Lily's neck. His weight shifted. Ryan's hands, massive, tattooed, shaking, lifted his son from Lily's back with a gentleness that made 30 grown men look away because it was too raw, too real, too holy to watch directly. And then Ethan was in his father's arms. Ryan crushed him against his chest, his face buried in his son's hair, his shoulders heaving. Ethan's small fists gripped his father's leather cut like he would never, ever let go. His sobs came in waves, huge, gulping, body-shaking sobs of pure relief. "I got lost, Daddy. There was fire and I couldn't find you. I was so scared. I walked and walked and I couldn't see where to go." "I know, baby." Ryan's voice was destroyed, wrecked, stripped to nothing. "I know. I'm here. I got you. You're safe. I'm never letting go." "Lily found me. She carried me. She carried me for so long, Daddy." Ryan pressed his lips to his son's forehead, held them there. His eyes were closed and tears ran down his weathered face, unchecked, unashamed, witnessed by every brother in that compound, and not one of them said a word. Then Ryan opened his eyes, and he looked at Lily. She was swaying. Her arms hung at her sides, empty for the first time in hours, and the emptiness seemed to confuse her body because she listed sideways like a ship that had lost its anchor. Her elbow was crusted with blood. Her shoes were falling apart. Her clothes hung on a frame that was more bone than anything else. She was already backing away. 1 step, 2. Her eyes were going glassy and unfocused. She was about to disappear, about to fade back into the invisible world she'd lived in for 2 years. Job done. Promise kept. Time to go. Ryan's voice stopped her. "Don't." One word, quiet but absolute. Lily froze. "Don't you walk away from me." Ryan was still on his knees, still holding Ethan, but his eyes were locked on Lily with an intensity that pinned her in place. "Don't you dare disappear. Not after what you just did." Lily opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Ryan shifted Ethan to one arm, held out the other hand toward her. His voice softened, cracked, became something human and desperate and real. "What's your name?" "Lily." "How old are you, Lily?" 15. "Where are your parents?" The silence after that question was the loudest thing in the compound. "I don't have any," Lily whispered. "Where do you live?" She couldn't answer that, couldn't make the words come, because the truth was so pathetic, so exposed, so naked under these floodlights surrounded by these men. She just shook her head. Ryan looked at her, really looked, past the dirt and the poverty and the exhaustion to the thing underneath, the thing that had made a starving, homeless girl give away her only water, carry a stranger's child for 6 miles, and walk straight into a compound full of men who terrified her because she'd made a promise to a boy who couldn't see her face. "You carried my son," Ryan said slowly, "for 6 miles. In this heat, you gave him your water. You had nothing, nothing, and you gave him everything you had." Lily's bottom lip trembled. "He was crying. I couldn't just leave him." "Most people did. Most people walked right past you both today, didn't they?" Lily nodded, something hot and terrible building behind her eyes. Ryan's outstretched hand didn't waver. "Come inside, please. Let us help you the way you helped my son." Lily looked at his hand, looked at the bikers surrounding her, looked at Ethan, whose face was buried in his father's neck, whose small hand had reached out blindly in her direction, fingers grasping at the air, searching for her. "Lily?" Ethan's voice was muffled against his father's chest. "You're still there, right? Don't leave. Please don't leave." Lily's legs finally gave out. Not slowly, all at once, like someone had cut the strings that were holding her up. She went straight down, and if Ryan hadn't lunged forward with his free arm, she would have hit concrete for the second time that day. He caught her. One arm around Ethan, the other catching Lily, and for one impossible moment, this feared biker was on his knees in a floodlit compound holding both children. The one he'd been searching for, and the one nobody had been searching for at all. "I got you," Ryan said. "I got you both." Lily Harper had been invisible for 2 years. Nobody had caught her when she fell. Nobody had been there to say, "I got you." Nobody had looked at her and seen anything worth stopping for. Until now. Her eyes closed, and for the first time in 730 days, she stopped fighting. Lily woke up and didn't know where she was. That wasn't unusual. 2 years of sleeping in doorways and bus shelters and behind dumpsters meant waking up disoriented was normal. What wasn't normal was the softness underneath her. What wasn't normal was the warmth. What wasn't normal was the pillow under her head, an actual pillow, and the blanket covering her body, and the fact that she was lying on something that wasn't concrete. She sat up fast. Too fast. Her head spun and her arms screamed, and every muscle in her body lit up with a pain so deep it felt like her bones were bruised. "Easy," a woman's voice. Calm, steady, close. "You passed out. You've been sleeping for about 2 hours. You're safe." Lily's eyes adjusted. A woman sat in a chair beside her, brown hair pulled back, kind face, maybe mid-40s. She had the same jaw as Ryan Cole. "I'm Linda," the woman said. "Ryan's sister. You're at the compound. Do you remember what happened?" Lily remembered. All of it. The walking, the carrying, the gate, the floodlights, Ryan on his knees, Ethan's cry, and then nothing. Her legs giving out and the ground rushing up and someone catching her. "Ethan," Lily said immediately, "is he?" "He's fine. He's with Ryan. He's been asking about you every 10 minutes. Linda's voice softened. "Actually, he's been driving everyone crazy asking about you. He won't go to sleep until he knows you're okay." Lily's shoulders dropped, relief so intense it almost hurt. "He's okay. He's okay because of you." Linda leaned forward. "Lily, when's the last time you ate a real meal?" Lily tried to think. Carlos's tacos. But before that, days. Maybe 3 days since anything more than crackers she'd found behind a gas station. "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked. The taco man fed us on the way here." Linda's expression did something complicated. Not pity, Lily knew pity, could spot it from a block away, had learned to hate it with every fiber of her being. This was something else. This was anger. Quiet, controlled anger directed not at Lily, but at whatever world had allowed a 15-year-old girl to go days without eating. "Come on," Linda said, standing. Let's get you cleaned up first, then food. You don't have to. Lily, Linda's voice was gentle but left no room for argument. You carried my nephew for 6 miles. You can let someone take care of you for 6 minutes. Linda led her to a bathroom. A real bathroom with a real door that locked, and a real shower with hot water. Lily stood in the doorway, staring at it like it was a hallucination. Take as long as you need, Linda said. Clean clothes are on the counter. They're mine so they'll be big, but they're clean. Linda closed the door. Lily locked it. She turned on the water and stood under it fully clothed for 30 seconds before she remembered that wasn't how showers work. She peeled off her filthy clothes and stepped under the spray, and the heat hit her body, and something inside her chest cracked wide open. She cried, not quietly, not the controlled, silent tears she'd taught herself on the streets, where crying meant weakness and weakness meant danger. This was ugly, gasping, full-body sobbing that came from somewhere so deep she didn't know it existed. 2 years of hunger and cold and loneliness and fear, and invisible invisibleness pouring out of her under hot water that turned brown and then gray and then clear as the streets washed off her skin. She cried until the water started to cool. Then she washed herself with actual soap 3 times, scrubbed her hair twice, stood there letting clean water run over clean skin, and felt like a different species than the girl who had woken up under a bus shelter this morning. The clothes Linda left were too big, but they were soft, and they smelled like laundry detergent, and Lily put them on and looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the face looking back. Same girl, same features, but cleaner, younger, less like something that had been crumpled up and thrown away. She opened the door. Linda was waiting. She looked at Lily and smiled. There she is. Come eat. A plate sat on the kitchen counter. A real plate on a real counter. Burger, fries, vegetables that were actually green and not wilted from a dumpster. A glass of milk, a glass of water, an apple. Lily sat down and stared at it. It's not going to disappear, Linda said gently. Lily picked up the burger, took a small bite, chewed slowly, swallowed, waited, took another bite. She ate the way she'd trained herself to eat, carefully, slowly, never trusting that the food wouldn't be taken away. Nobody took it away. She ate every bite. Then Linda put a second plate down without a word, and Lily ate that too. And the shame she expected to feel never came, because Linda had turned away to wash dishes and was giving her the gift of not being watched while she fed a hunger that went back months. Thank you, Lily said when her plate was empty. Her voice sounded different to her own ears, steadier, less like something about to break. You're welcome, sweetheart. The kitchen door opened. Ryan walked in carrying Ethan, who was in pajamas and had clearly been bathed and fed, but whose face was tight with worry. Lily? Ethan's head turned toward the room, his ears doing the work his eyes couldn't. Lily, is that you? Yeah, buddy, it's me. Ethan's face transformed, pure joy. You're still here. I told Daddy you'd still be here. He said you might leave, but I said you wouldn't because you promised. Lily's throat tightened. I'm still here. Ryan set Ethan down, and the boy walked forward with his hands out, navigating by sound, until his fingers found Lily's arm. He grabbed on and didn't let go. His small hand wrapped around her wrist like a tether. You smell different, Ethan said. Lily almost laughed. I took a shower. You smell like soap. I like it better. Now she did laugh, a real laugh, small and rusty from disuse, but real. Ryan watched it happen and something shifted in his face. Ethan, you need to sleep, Ryan said. Not until Lily says goodnight. Buddy, she promised she wouldn't leave. I need to hear her say goodnight so I know she'll be here in the morning. Lily looked at Ryan. Ryan looked back at her. Something passed between them, an understanding that this boy had attached himself to Lily in a way that went beyond gratitude, beyond rescue. Ethan had been lost in the dark, and Lily's voice had been the only light. That kind of bond didn't break with a good night's sleep. Lily knelt down so she was level with Ethan. Good night, Ethan. I'll be here when you wake up. You promise? I promise. That's 4 promises now. You owe me 4 promises. I'm good for it. Ethan smiled. A real, complete 7-year-old smile that rearranged his whole face. He let go of Lily's wrist, found his father's hand, and let Ryan lead him away. At the door, he turned back. Lily? Yeah? Thank you for stopping. When you heard me crying, thank you for not walking past. The door closed behind him, and Lily sat at that kitchen counter and pressed both hands flat against the surface and breathed through the tightness in her chest that felt nothing like pain and everything like something she'd forgotten the name of. Linda touched her shoulder. I'll show you where you're sleeping tonight. I can go. I should go. You've done enough. Lily Harper, Linda's voice had an edge now, not unkind but immovable. You are sleeping in a bed tonight, in this building, behind locked doors with 40 men outside who would flatten anyone who tried to bother you. That is not a suggestion. Now come on. The room was small, a single bed with actual sheets and an actual blanket, a lamp on a table, a door that closed. Lily stood in the doorway and stared at it. This is a real room, she said, stupidly, obviously, but she said it anyway because her brain needed to hear it confirmed. It's yours tonight, Linda said. Bathroom's down the hall. If you need anything, I'm in the room at the end. Linda left. Lily closed the door, sat on the bed, touched the pillow, lay down. The mattress held her body in a way that concrete never had. The blanket was warm without being heavy. The room was dark and quiet and safe, and she was clean and fed, and for the first time in 2 years, no part of her body was touching the ground. She couldn't sleep, not because she wasn't exhausted. She was destroyed, hollowed out, running on nothing. But her brain wouldn't stop. It kept cycling through the same questions. How long would they let her stay? 1 night? 2? What happened in the morning? Would they thank her and send her back to the streets with a pat on the head and a clear conscience? She'd been here before, 3 foster homes. 3 times someone said, "You're safe now." 3 times it turned out to be temporary. Temporary kindness was worse than no kindness at all. Because temporary kindness reminded you of what you were missing, showed you exactly what you couldn't have, then yanked it away and left you colder than before. Lily lay in the dark and told herself not to get used to this, not to let the mattress and the clean clothes and the full stomach fool her into believing this was anything more than 1 night. People were kind when gratitude was fresh. Kindness faded. She knew that better than anyone. She was still telling herself that when exhaustion finally pulled her under. Morning came through a window. Lily's eyes opened to sunlight, and for 5 full seconds she didn't move because she was absolutely certain she was dreaming. Then she felt the sheets, felt the pillow, heard voices somewhere in the building, male voices, deep, the kind of voices that belonged to men who rode motorcycles and wore leather. Real. All of it real. She dressed in Linda's 2 big clothes and opened the door cautiously, like the hallway might contain a trap. It didn't. It contained Ethan. He was sitting on the floor outside her door, cross-legged, patient. His head turned the second the door opened. "Lily, you're still here. You didn't leave." "How long have you been sitting there?" "Since I woke up. Daddy said I couldn't knock because you needed sleep, so I waited." "You've been sitting outside my door waiting for me to wake up?" "I had to make sure." His voice got small. "I had to make sure you were real." Lily sat down on the floor beside him. "I'm real, buddy. Will you read to me?" "Daddy reads to me, but he skips words. He thinks I can't tell, but I always can." Ryan appeared at the end of the hallway, coffee in hand, dark circles under his eyes that said he hadn't slept much either. He looked at Lily sitting on the floor with his son, and something passed across his face. Relief, gratitude, and something deeper that he didn't try to name. Guilty as charged, Ryan said. I skipped the boring parts. There are no boring parts, Daddy. Ryan walked closer. His eyes met Lily's over his son's head. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in 2 years. You hungry? You don't have to keep feeding me. You didn't answer the question. Lily paused. Starving. Then come eat. Linda's making enough breakfast to feed an army, which around here is basically accurate. They ate together. Lily, Ryan, Ethan, Linda, and 3 bikers who drifted in and out of the kitchen. The bikers nodded at Lily with a respect she didn't understand and wasn't sure she'd earned. One of them, older, bald, tattoos covering both arms, set a glass of orange juice in front of her without saying a word and walked away. After breakfast, Ryan asked Linda to take Ethan for a while. Ethan protested. I want to stay with Lily. I know, buddy. I need to talk to her for a minute. She's not leaving. You promise? Ryan looked at Lily. Lily nodded. She promises, Ryan said. Ethan allowed himself to be led away, his hand trailing along the wall, counting steps the way blind children learn to map the world. At the doorway, he turned back one more time. Lily, don't let Daddy scare you. He looks scary, but he's actually soft. Ethan. Ryan's voice held a warning that was entirely undermined by the fact that 3 bikers in the kitchen were trying not to laugh. It's true, Ethan said, and disappeared around the corner with Linda. Ryan sat across from Lily. The kitchen was empty now, just the 2 of them and the remains of breakfast, and the weight of everything that hadn't been said yet. I need to ask you some things, Ryan said, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that? I've been honest with you since I got here. I know, that's why I'm asking instead of assuming. He paused. How long have you been on the streets? 2 years, since I was 13. Parents? Mom died, overdose. Dad left when I was 6. Foster care? Lily's jaw tightened. 3 homes in 8 months. The 3rd one had a foster father who... She stopped, swallowed. I ran. Ryan's hands resting on the table slowly closed into fists. Not directed at her, directed at something he couldn't reach and couldn't fix. His voice came out carefully controlled. Did he touch you? I ran before he could. But he tried. Lily didn't answer. She didn't have to. Ryan read it in the way she looked at the table instead of his eyes. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder, but not at her. Never at her. You've been alone for 2 years. No one looking for you. No one checking on you. The system lost track of me. I didn't exactly make myself easy to find. You were 13, Lily. The system didn't lose track of you. The system failed you. Those words landed somewhere deep. Somewhere Lily had built walls specifically to protect. She pressed her lips together hard. Yesterday, Ryan said, you found my son. Blind, terrified, alone. You had nothing, less than nothing. You were starving, dehydrated, exhausted, and you gave him your only water. You picked him up and carried him for 6 miles through the worst part of this city. You walked into a compound full of men who terrified you. You did all of that for a boy you'd never met. He was crying. I couldn't just... Let me finish. Ryan leaned forward. Most people in this city walked past you both yesterday. A gas station clerk told you to leave. A woman at a pump drove away. Strangers on the street looked through you like you were glass. They all decided that a homeless girl carrying a blind boy wasn't their problem. Lily said nothing. But you decided my son was your problem, when you had every reason, every single reason, to mind your own business and keep yourself alive. He reminded me of me, Lily said quietly, scared, alone, nobody coming. And you came. Somebody had to. Ryan sat back. His eyes were bright. He blinked once, hard, and when he opened them again, his voice had the particular roughness of a man fighting to keep his composure. Lily, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to hear it, Really hear it, not dismiss it, not deflect it, not tell me you don't deserve it. Lily braced. She couldn't help it. 2 years of bracing. I called Big Jack this morning. We talked for an hour. About you, about what happened, about what comes next. Ryan paused. There's going to be a vote tonight, a formal one. The club votes on whether to bring you under our protection, give you a place here, a real place. Not for one night, for as long as you need. Lily stared at him. It's going to be unanimous, Ryan said. I already know. Every man in this compound saw what you did yesterday. Every single one of them has said the same thing. That girl has more heart than half the people in this city. I don't, Lily's voice broke. She caught it, held it. I don't understand why. Because this club was built on a code, Lily. Protect the vulnerable. Stand up when everyone else sits down. Don't walk past someone who needs help. That's what we are. That's what we're supposed to be. And yesterday, a 15-year-old girl with nothing lived that code better than any of us ever have. Lily's hands were shaking on the table. She pressed them flat to make them stop. It didn't work. What if it's temporary? The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest and terrified. What if you vote yes tonight, and then in 3 weeks you change your mind? What if I mess up? What if I'm too much work? What if... Lily, everyone leaves. That's what I know. That's what always happens. People promise and then they leave. Ryan reached across the table. His hand, massive, scarred, tattooed, covered both of hers. His grip was firm but careful. The hands of a man who knew how to be gentle when it mattered most. I'm going to tell you something about this club. When we say family, we mean it. Not the way foster homes mean it. Not the way the system means it. When the Hells Angels say you're family, that means 40 men will ride through hell for you. It means nobody touches you, nobody hurts you, nobody makes you feel invisible ever again. It means your problems become our problems. Your fights become our fights. Your future becomes something we all build together. Lily couldn't speak. Her vision was blurring and her throat was locked shut, and her hands were trembling under Ryan's steady grip. Ethan asked me something this morning, Ryan said. He asked if you could stay forever, and I told him that wasn't my decision alone. But I also told him that if it was up to me, just me, the answer would be yes. Because the girl who carried my blind son home through 6 miles of hell is exactly the kind of person this family needs. Lily pulled her hands free, not to retreat, to press them against her face, to hold herself together while something enormous and terrifying and beautiful tore through her chest like a storm. She didn't cry. She was past crying. She was in some other territory entirely, the place where pain and hope collide so violently that the only response is silence. Ryan didn't push. He just sat there, across the table, solid and patient and present, and waited for Lily to find her way back to words. When she finally dropped her hands, her eyes were red but dry, and her voice was steady. If you vote yes tonight, she said, I'll earn it. Every day, I'll earn it. Ryan Cole looked at this girl, this impossibly brave, impossibly broken, impossibly strong girl, and shook his head slowly. You already have. The vote happened at 7 o'clock that evening. Lily wasn't supposed to hear it. Ryan told her to stay in the kitchen with Ethan and Linda while the brothers gathered in the common room. But sound carried through these walls, and Lily heard every word, sitting at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she was sure Ethan could hear it. Ethan sat beside her, his small hand resting on her arm. He hadn't let go of her for more than 10 minutes at a stretch since morning. Every time she moved, his head turned to track her. Every time she spoke, he leaned toward her voice like a plant toward sunlight. They're talking about you, Ethan said. I know. Are you scared? A little. Don't be. Daddy told me what's happening. He said they're going to vote on whether you can stay. He said everyone's going to say yes. He doesn't know that for sure, buddy. Yes, he does. He knows everything. Lily almost smiled. Almost. Through the wall, Big Jack's voice carried. Deep, measured, commanding the kind of silence that only came from decades of earned authority. Brothers, you all know why we're here. Last night, a 15-year-old girl walked through our gates carrying Ryan's boy on her back. She'd been walking for 6 miles. In 107-degree heat. She's homeless. She's been on the streets for 2 years. No family. No one looking for her. No one giving a damn whether she lived or died. Silence. Total, absolute silence from a room full of men who were rarely quiet. She found Ethan behind a burned building, crying, bleeding, blind and completely alone. She had half a bottle of water to her name, her only water, and she gave it to him. Every drop. Then she picked him up, put him on her back, and started walking. She had no phone, no money, no idea where she was going. She just walked. Lily's hands tightened on the coffee cup. She asked strangers for help. A gas station clerk told her to get lost. A woman at a pump drove away from her. People on the street looked right through her. Not one person in this city stopped to help a homeless girl carrying a blind child. Not one. Big Jack's voice hardened. She kept walking. Through neighborhoods that make grown men nervous after dark. She got directions from corner boys who told her she was either brave or crazy. She fell and cracked her elbow open and got back up. She fell, and the first thing she did was twist her body so the boy landed on top of her instead of hitting concrete. A murmur through the room. Low, angry, moved. Then she heard the radio, heard Ethan's name, heard the words Hell's Angels, and she knew that walking into this compound could get her killed. She's 15. She's not stupid. She understood exactly what we are and exactly what could happen to her. Big Jack paused. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but carried harder. And she kept walking because she'd made a promise to a blind 7-year-old boy, and she decided that promise was worth more than her safety. Lily pressed her hand over her mouth. Ryan wants to bring her under our protection. Give her a place here, not temporary, real. I'm putting it to a vote. Ryan's voice next, thick with emotion he wasn't hiding. She saved my son, brothers. She had every reason to walk away. Every single reason. She had nothing, and she gave my boy everything. That's not charity. That's character. That's exactly what we say this patch means. Tommy Briggs spoke. My daughter's 7, same age as Ethan. If she was lost out there, blind and scared, and some kid found her and carried her home, I wouldn't just vote yes. I'd carry that kid on my own back for the rest of my life. Snake's graveled voice cut through. I've been in this club 31 years. I've seen a lot of tough, a lot of brave. What that girl did yesterday is the bravest thing I've seen in 3 decades. She's got the code in her bones. She didn't learn it. She was born with it. Another voice Lily didn't recognize. She's 15 and homeless. That means the system already failed her. We don't fail people. That's not who we are. Big Jack's voice again. All in favor. Lily held her breath. The sound that came through the wall wasn't individual voices. It was one voice. One unified, absolute, thundering response from every man in that room. I. Lily's coffee cup slipped from her fingers. It hit the table, sloshed but didn't fall. Her vision blurred. Her hands shook. Her breath came in short, broken gasps that she couldn't control. Ethan's hand tightened on her arm. See, I told you. I told you they'd say yes. Linda was beside her instantly, arm around her shoulders, warm and solid, and there. Breathe, sweetheart. Just breathe. I can't. Lily pressed both hands flat on the table, tried to anchor herself. The room was spinning, and her chest was too full, and she couldn't process what was happening because nothing in her 15 years of life had prepared her for the experience of being chosen. The kitchen door opened. Ryan stood there. Behind him, a hallway full of bikers who were trying to give her space, but whose faces said everything their words hadn't yet. "It's unanimous," Ryan said. "You're family now, Lily." Lily looked at him, looked at the men behind him, looked at Ethan, whose blind eyes couldn't see her face, but whose smile could have lit the whole compound. Looked at Linda, who was crying quietly beside her. "Why?" The word came out broken. "I'm nobody, I'm nobody." Ryan crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. He knelt in front of her chair the same way he'd knelt at the gate when Ethan came home. Eye level, close. His voice low enough that it felt like it was just for her. "You are not nobody. You hear me? You were never nobody. You were invisible. And there's a difference. Invisible means the world chose not to see you. That's the world's failure, not yours." Lily's bottom lip trembled, and she bit down on it hard enough to taste copper. "My wife died 3 years ago," Ryan said. "Cancer. Fast. Brutal. I held her hand and I promised her I'd take care of Ethan. That promise is the only thing that's held me together since. Yesterday I was failing that promise. For 3 hours and 45 minutes, I was failing the only thing that mattered." He paused. His voice cracked and he let it. "And then you walked through that gate, a homeless kid with nothing, carrying my son. You'd given him your water and your strength and your promise, and you delivered on every single one. You saved him, Lily. You saved my boy. And I don't care what any piece of paper says or doesn't say. You're family. Right now. Permanent. Done." Lily broke. Not the controlled, silent crying from the shower, not the careful tears she'd learned to hide on the streets. She broke open completely, loud, gasping, ugly sobs that came from 2 years of hunger and loneliness, and sleeping on concrete and being looked through by every person she passed. 2 years of being nobody, 2 years of mattering to no one. And now a room full of the most feared men in Texas was telling her she mattered. Ethan slid off his chair and found her by sound. His small arms wrapped around her waist. He pressed his face against her stomach and held on. "Don't cry, Lily, or cry if you need to. Daddy says crying is okay when it's the good kind." "Is this the good kind?" Lily managed through the sobs. "I think so. Your heart sounds happy even though you're crying. Hearts don't lie." Ryan put one hand on Lily's shoulder and the other on Ethan's back, and the 3 of them stayed like that in the kitchen while 40 bikers stood in the hallway pretending they weren't wiping their own eyes. The next 2 weeks moved fast. Ryan made phone calls. Big Jack navigated bureaucracy with the patience of a man who'd once waited 17 hours in a desert for a parts shipment. Linda organized everything else. The problem was simple and enormous at the same time. Lily Harper didn't exist. No birth certificate anyone could find. No school records since 7th grade. No address. No social security card. No proof that a 15-year-old girl was real and alive and standing in a Hells Angels compound in El Paso, Texas. "We need to get this kid documented," Big Jack told Ryan on day 3. "School, ID, medical, all of it. I know, I'm working on it. Work faster. Every day she's not in school is a day the system can use against us." Social workers came on day 5. 2 women in business clothes who pulled up to the compound and sat in their car for a full minute before getting out because the 40 motorcycles and the razor wire and the Death's Head logo weren't exactly what child welfare pamphlets prepared you for. Ryan met them at the gate, polite, controlled, every tattoo on display, every inch of his leather cut visible, and his handshake firm enough to communicate that cooperation was a choice he was making, not a concession. They interviewed Lily in the kitchen. Linda sat with her. "Do you feel safe here, Lily?" "Safer than I've ever felt anywhere." "These men, the club members, do any of them make you uncomfortable?" Lily almost laughed. They make me breakfast. The social workers exchanged a glance. Have you been coerced in any way? Threatened? Has anyone told you what to say to us? Nobody told me anything. Ryan asked me to be honest, so I'm being honest. I was sleeping behind dumpsters 2 weeks ago. Now I have a bed and a door that locks, and people who notice when I walk into a room. You tell me where I'm safer. They interviewed Ethan separately. Who is Lily? She's my best friend. She found me when I was lost. She carried me home. She reads to me and doesn't skip the boring parts like Daddy does. Do you like having her here? She's my sister, said with the absolute certainty only a 7-year-old could muster. She just didn't know it yet. The social workers left with cautious approval. Within 2 weeks, paperwork was filed. Linda pulled strings with a friend at the school district. Lily was enrolled at Jefferson High School. Ryan drove her on the first morning. She sat on the back of his Harley, gripping the seat, wearing new jeans and a new jacket, and carrying a backpack that had actual zippers instead of safety pins. Her stomach was a knot of terror. You nervous? Ryan asked. Terrified. You walked into a Hells Angels compound carrying a blind kid on your back. You can handle 10th grade. That's different. That was just walking. Lily, you haven't been in a classroom in 2 years. It's going to be hard. You're going to feel behind. You're going to want to quit. I don't quit. I know you don't. That's why I'm not worried. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Basic, simple, a phone. This is yours. My number's in it. Big Jack's number, Linda's number, Tommy's number. If anything happens, anything, you call. One of us will be here in 10 minutes. Lily held the phone like it was made of glass. Her first phone. Her first anything in 2 years that was actually hers. Ryan? Yeah? I don't know how to do this. Do what? Have people. People who show up. I don't know how that works. Ryan looked at her, really looked. The way he had at the gate, the way he had across the kitchen table, seeing past the surface to the thing underneath. You don't have to know how. You just have to let it happen. We'll do the rest. School was brutal. 2 years of missed education hit Lily like a wall. Math was a foreign language. History was a blur of events she'd never learned. English was the only thing she could hold on to because she'd spent 2 years reading whatever she could find. Discarded newspapers, abandoned books, notices taped to telephone poles, anything with words. She came home that first day and sat at the kitchen table, staring at a worksheet that might as well have been written in Mandarin. Linda sat down beside her. Bad day? I don't know anything. Everyone else knows everything and I know nothing. Then we start at nothing and work up. I was a teacher before I moved here. Math was my subject. Show me what they gave you. They worked until 10 o'clock. Linda was patient, impossibly patient. She explained fractions like they were recipes and equations like they were puzzles, and never once made Lily feel stupid for not knowing things she should have learned 2 years ago. Ethan sat in the corner listening. When Lily groaned in frustration, he said, "You carried me for 6 miles. You can carry fractions." Ryan laughed from the doorway. Lily threw a pencil eraser at Ethan, who caught it because his hearing was sharper than most people's sight. And for one moment, the kitchen felt like the thing Lily had spent 2 years trying not to want. It felt like home. 3 weeks in, it almost fell apart. Lily came back from school on a Tuesday and heard voices from the common room. She wasn't eavesdropping. The hallway was the only path to her room, but the words stopped her cold. "I'm just saying, how long is this supposed to last?" A voice she recognized, one of the newer members, a guy named Hank. "She's not blood. She's not a member's kid. We took a vote on emotion, and now what? We're paying for school supplies and clothes and food for someone who's basically a stranger." "She's not a stranger." Tommy's voice, defensive, sharp. "She's been here 3 weeks, Tommy. 3 weeks ago, none of us knew her name. 3 weeks ago, she carried Ryan's blind son through 6 miles of..." "I know the story. Everyone knows the story, but stories don't pay bills. I'm asking a practical question. Lily didn't hear Tommy's response. She didn't hear anything after that because blood was rushing in her ears, and her chest was constricting, and the hallway was shrinking, and she was 12 years old again, sitting outside a foster family's bedroom door, hearing them say she was too much work. She went to her room, closed the door, opened the closet. Her old backpack was there, filthy, torn, held together with safety pins. She'd asked Linda to keep it. Insurance, she'd called it, a way out if she needed one. She started packing, quietly, clean clothes into the ruined backpack. The phone Ryan gave her placed carefully on the bedside table because it wasn't hers, not really. Nothing here was really hers. She waited until midnight, crept through the hallway, past Ethan's room where she paused, just for a second, just long enough to hear his breathing, steady and peaceful, and kept moving. Through the common room, toward the front door, toward the gate, toward the streets that were the only thing that had never lied to her about what she could expect. She made it to the steps. Going somewhere? Lily stopped dead. Ryan sat on the bottom step, a cigarette between his fingers, not smoldering, unlit. He'd been waiting, sitting in the dark, waiting, like he'd known this would happen. I heard you get up, he said. Heard you packing. You're not quiet enough yet. We'll work on that. Lily stood frozen on the top step, backpack on her shoulders, old shoes on her feet, heart pounding. I have to go. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? Because it's better if I leave now. Better for who? For everyone. I heard Hank. I heard what he said. He's right. I'm not blood. I'm not anyone's kid. I'm a stranger you felt sorry for, and eventually the feeling sorry part wears off, and then I'm just a problem. I know how this goes, Ryan. I've been through it 3 times. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he took a long breath and said the last thing she expected. Hank's an idiot. Lily blinked. You want to know what that conversation was actually about? Tommy and Hank and 3 other guys were arguing about whether to put a desk or a bookshelf in your room. Lily stared at him. They were arguing about furniture? For your room, which they're remodeling, which is supposed to be a surprise, so thanks for ruining that. But he said, Hank runs his mouth. Ask anyone. Last month he complained that we spent too much on Ethan's Braille books. The month before that, he said the compound's electric bill was too high because Tommy leaves lights on. He complains about everything. It's basically his personality. Lily didn't move. Her fingers were white on the backpack straps. Ryan stood up, walked up the steps until he was 1 step below her, which put them at eye level. His face was calm and serious and absolutely certain. Lily, listen to me. You are not leaving. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not because some guy with a big mouth made you feel like you don't belong. You belong here. The vote was unanimous. Every hand in that room went up for you. Hank's hand went up. Even Hank, with all his complaining, raised his hand for you. Because what you did matters. Who you are matters. But what if? There's no what if. Family doesn't have a what if. Family has an always. Lily's backpack suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Not the weight of clothes and shoes, the weight of a decision. The weight of trust she wasn't sure she knew how to give. Everyone leaves, she said. That's what I know. Then learn something new. He took the backpack off her shoulders, gently, set it on the step. Go back to bed, Lily. In the morning, act surprised about the bookshelf. Lily stood on those steps in the dark with the weight gone from her shoulders, and a man she'd known for 3 weeks looking at her like she was worth staying for. And something shifted. Not all at once, not like a light switching on, more like a crack in a wall she'd built. Tiny, almost invisible, but enough to let something through. She went back inside, past Ethan's room, heard his steady breathing, went to her own room, lay down on the bed that was hers, pulled the blanket up that was hers. In a room that was being remodeled because people she'd known for 3 weeks had decided she was worth building something for. Lily didn't sleep for a long time, but she didn't pack again either. The next morning, Lily walked into her room after breakfast and stopped in the doorway. Fresh paint, a real desk with a lamp, a bookshelf filled with books, novels, textbooks, a dictionary, a thesaurus. New bedding on the bed, a framed photograph on the nightstand that hadn't been there before. She picked it up. Her and Ethan. Someone had taken it 3 days ago in the kitchen. Ethan laughing at something she'd said, his hand on her arm, Lily mid-sentence with an expression on her face she barely recognized. She looked happy. Ethan was waiting in the hallway, bouncing on his toes. "Surprise! Do you like it? Tommy built the bookshelf. Linda picked the books. Daddy painted, but he got paint on the floor and Big Jack yelled at him." "I did not get paint on the floor," Ryan called from somewhere down the hall. "He absolutely did," Linda called from somewhere else. Lily stood holding the photograph and looking at a room that someone had built for her. Not a room she was borrowing, not a room she was temporary in, a room with her photograph on the nightstand and books chosen for her on a shelf built by hands that could have been doing anything else. "Lily?" Ethan's voice carried a thread of worry. "You're being really quiet. Do you not like it?" Lily knelt down and pulled him into a hug so tight he squeaked. "I love it," she said into his hair. "I love all of it. You're squishing me." "I know. That's okay. You can squish me." She held on for a long time, and when she let go, something had settled inside her that hadn't been settled before. Not fixed, not healed, but settled, the way a foundation settles before you start building something on top of it. Months passed. Lily's grades climbed. Linda tutored her 4 nights a week with the relentless patience of someone who refused to let a 15-year-old girl fail at anything she put her mind to. Ryan showed up to every parent-teacher conference in his leather cut and sat in chairs designed for people half his size and listened carefully to every word every teacher said and asked questions that made it clear he'd been reading Lily's homework over her shoulder. "She's remarkably determined," her math teacher said during the fall conference. 2 years behind and she's nearly caught up." "She's the most determined person I know," Ryan said, and he meant it in a way that went far beyond math. Ethan followed Lily around the compound like a shadow, with perfect hearing. She read to him every afternoon, never skipping words, never rushing, never showing impatience when he interrupted with questions every 3rd page. His laughter came back, bright and frequent and so full of life that bikers passing in the hallway would slow down just to hear it. "She's good for him," Snake told Ryan one evening, watching through the doorway as Lily helped Ethan with his Braille homework. "He's lighter since she got here." "She's good for all of us," Ryan said. And she was, in ways nobody expected. It started at school. Lily noticed a boy in her English class who ate alone every day. Same clothes every week, hunted eyes, the particular stillness of a kid who'd learned that being small and quiet was the safest way to survive. She knew that stillness. She'd invented that stillness. She sat down across from him at lunch. He looked at her like she'd pulled a weapon. "I'm Lily." "So?" "So you eat alone every day and you wear the same hoodie every week and you look like you haven't slept somewhere warm in a while." His jaw tightened. "Mind your own business." "I lived on the streets for 2 years. I slept behind dumpsters. I ate out of garbage cans. I'm making this my business." His name was Aaron, 16, couch surfing since his mother's boyfriend kicked him out 4 months ago, attending school because it was warm and there was a free lunch program, sleeping in his car when he had enough gas to drive to a safe neighborhood, sleeping in the school bathroom when he didn't. Lily told Ryan that evening. Ryan told Big Jack. Big Jack made 3 phone calls. By Friday, Aaron had a bed at a shelter, a meeting with a caseworker, and a bag of groceries that appeared in his locker with a note that said, "You're not invisible. Someone sees you." Aaron found Lily in the hallway the next Monday. His eyes were red. Who did this?" "People who help, that's what they do." "Bikers." He said it flat, disbelieving. I know how it sounds, but yeah, bikers. It happened again. And again. Lily had a radar for invisible kids, the ones falling through cracks, the ones the system had missed or given up on. A girl who hadn't changed her clothes in 2 weeks. A freshman who flinched when adults raised their voices. A kid who stole food from the cafeteria and hid it in his backpack for later. Lily saw them all, because she'd been all of them. Each time she brought the story home. Each time the Hells Angels moved. Quietly. No cameras, no publicity, no self-congratulation. Just men in leather cuts showing up with groceries and connections and the kind of fierce, practical help that came from understanding that protection wasn't a word on a patch, it was a daily choice. Tommy shook his head one night after they'd helped place a 14-year-old girl in emergency housing. I've lived in this city my whole life. I never saw these kids. They're invisible, Lily said. You have to know how invisible looks to see it. You taught us how to see, Big Jack said, simply, factually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The club started an initiative. No name, no website, no press releases. Just a quiet network of help for kids who had fallen through every net the world had put up. Ryan funded it from club resources. Tommy ran logistics. Snake made connections with shelters and social workers who'd learned that the Hells Angels' reputation for fierceness extended to how fiercely they protected children nobody else bothered to protect. Lily was the bridge. She spoke the language of the streets because she'd lived it. She earned trust from kids who trusted no one because she carried the proof in her own story. They're not what you think, she'd tell skeptical teenagers who looked at the leather cuts and the tattoos and saw danger. They saved me. They'll help you too. Some believed her, some didn't, but enough did that within a year, the Hells Angels El Paso chapter had helped 23 kids find safety, shelter, food, and the first fragile thread of hope. 1 year to the day after Lily carried Ethan through the streets of El Paso, Big Jack called a meeting. Full chapter, every member present, and Lily, standing against the back wall in jeans and a t-shirt, wondering why Ryan had insisted she attend. Big Jack stood at the center. The room went silent. A year ago, a girl walked through our gates. She had nothing. She was nothing, according to the world. Homeless, forgotten, invisible. She carried a blind boy on her back for 6 miles because she'd made a promise, and she wasn't the kind of person who broke promises. He looked around the room, every eye on him. Since that day, she's shown us what this patch is supposed to mean. Not the reputation, not the fear, the real thing underneath. Protect the vulnerable, stand for the forgotten, show up when the world walks past. She's done more in 1 year to live our code than most of us manage in a lifetime. Ryan stood. He was holding something behind his back. His eyes found Lily's across the room. Lily, come here. Her legs felt wooden. She walked forward through a corridor of bikers who parted for her and closed behind her like a current. She stopped in front of Ryan and Big Jack, her heart hammering. Ryan brought his hands forward. A leather vest, small, made for her, stitched on the back in letters that Lily read 3 times because her vision kept blurring. Hells Angels Family. Underneath, Lily Harper, protected. You're too young to be a member, Ryan said. His voice was thick. But you were never too young to be family. This makes it official. Everywhere you go, you carry our name, our protection, our promise. Anyone touches you, Big Jack added, they answer to every man in this room. And a few who aren't in this room, Snake said from the corner. Lily took the vest. The leather was stiff and new and heavier than she expected. She put it on. It fit like it had been measured for her, because it had. Linda had taken her measurements a week ago, claiming she was ordering winter clothes. The room erupted. Not cheers exactly, something deeper. Fists on tables, boots on floor. A rumble of approval that shook the walls and sounded like 40 Harleys firing at once. Ethan pushed through the crowd, navigating by sound, and crashed into her legs. "Now you're really my sister, for real." Lily looked down at this boy, this blind, brilliant, brave boy who couldn't see her face, but who had seen her more clearly than anyone ever had. She looked at Ryan, who was crying and not hiding it, at Big Jack, who was nodding slowly, at Tommy and Snake and Linda, and a room full of men who had decided that a homeless girl mattered. "Thank you," she said, and her voice didn't break. For the first time, it didn't break. "I'll earn this every day." "You already did," Ryan said. "A year ago, on a street you should never have been on, carrying a boy you'd never met, keeping a promise nobody asked you to make." That evening, Lily and Ethan sat on the compound steps. The sky was doing something impossible with color, but Lily wasn't watching the sky. She was watching Ethan's face, the way he tilted his head to catch the breeze, the way his clouded eyes moved like they were trying to see something only he could sense. "Tell me the story," Ethan said, the same request he made every week. "About when you found me. You've heard it 1,000 times. I like the way you tell it." So Lily told it, about the crying she couldn't walk past, about the water she gave away, about the weight of him on her back, in the heat, in the fear, in the promise she made to a boy she didn't know, about the gate and the floodlights, and the most terrified she'd ever been, about his father on his knees, about a hand reaching out, about learning, slowly, painfully, beautifully, that she was worth reaching for. Ethan listened the way he always listened, with his whole body, with his whole heart. "You saved my life," he said when she finished. "You saved mine," Lily said. "How? You carried me. You gave me a reason to keep walking. You gave me a family. You made me matter when I thought I was invisible forever." Ethan leaned against her shoulder. "You were never invisible, Lily. The world just had its eyes closed." Ryan joined them on the steps, sat beside Lily, said nothing for a while because some moments don't need words. Then, "Sarah would have loved you." Lily's throat went tight. "Yeah?" "She would have taken one look at you and said, 'That's my girl.' She had an eye for people. She could see what mattered." Ethan got that from her. "He did," Ryan paused. "So did you, somehow." Lily felt the vest on her shoulders, felt Ethan's warmth against her side, felt Ryan's presence, steady, solid, permanent. She thought about a morning 2 years ago when she woke up behind a dumpster and believed, truly believed, that she would be invisible for the rest of her life, that no one would ever stop for her, that she would live and die unseen. She was wrong. All it took was a promise to a boy she couldn't leave behind. All it took was 6 miles. All it took was deciding that someone else's life was worth more than her fear. Lily Harper carried a blind boy home, and in doing so, she finally found her own way there. The Hells Angels had a code: protect the vulnerable, honor loyalty, never abandon family. Lily didn't learn that code from a patch or a vote or a vest. She'd carried it inside her all along, written into the bones of a girl the world threw away and couldn't break. Some people are born into families, some people build them. And some people, the rarest, the bravest, the ones the world almost lost, carry them home on their backs, one impossible step at a time. Lily Harper was all three.